Have you ever noticed that almost every child star seems to live a very screwed up life?
It's true. They do.
It may not be permanent. They may chill out eventually, but there's at least going to be one phase where they're on drugs or something of the kind
Yeah.
and are just going haywire.
Well, and sometimes you see that the parents are just as freaky as the children. They
True.
kind of live through their children and mess their lives up.
Yeah, and they live through the kids. They use them to get money.
Yep.
But I think it's a pretty clear example that a lot of times the way that we define success, raising our kids to have a lot of money, a secure job, well, it didn't really work for those kids
No.
because they got a lot of money.
Yeah.
They had a very successful career. And it kind of screwed everything up.
Yeah.
So clearly there's a little bit more to the picture than just getting them the classic American dream.
Yeah.
And the responsibility on how to guide your kid really comes down to us as parents and us as dads. So is the goal to raise a successful kid?
Yeah.
No. And we're going to explain why today on the show.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast. I'm Reese.
And I'm David.
And he's my dad. And our goal is to help you get out of survival mode and into living a life that you're proud of. We want this not only for you, but for your kids. So this month, we are talking about how to be a good dad. Over the past couple weeks, we've discussed two important points. Point number one, to be a good dad, you need to be a good person.
Yes.
And so working on yourself, growing yourself, which is a lifelong journey, is worth the investment. It's not either work on you or your kids. It's working on you helps your kids.
Yeah.
Same thing with your marriage. That was our second session, which is the idea that the marriage is the foundation of a healthy household. Your kids are going to come and they're going to go, but you and your wife are really the bedrock of the family. So by really investing in that relationship over the lifetime, you're not only blessing your marriage, you're blessing those kids as well. But now we're here, finally, to the actual parenting part of it.
Yeah.
All that preamble was necessary, vital even. But now we're at the point where we can talk about how to raise kids. You have a fantastic digital series on this. I think it's Dad Secrets for Success, if I'm not mistaken.
Dad Secrets for Success. Yep.
Yeah. Great session. I got to help film that for you. And I took notes because it was good stuff. But what we're learning today is something that kind of lines up with one of the sessions in your series. And so kind of intro the topic for these guys.
Yeah, what we're doing is we're talking about what is our goal for raising our kids. And it's an important question to ask because a lot of people, you say, well, what's your goal for the kids? And I just want my kids to be happy. And then you kind of get into that. What does that mean? What do you mean by happy? And most people, if they got honest, they would define it with financially successful.
Yeah.
If my kids are financially successful, that's a successful child. But it's really not. As we said at the beginning of the show, there are lots of kids who've made millions of dollars, but they're not happy.
Yeah.
Their life actually can be destroyed by that. So what we have to do is go beyond what sometimes is our definition of success and look beyond. Because what we're doing is we're really thinking of outer success. And what we need to do is look at inner security. If you want to raise a truly successful child, you can't look at their outward success as much as you need to look at their inner success. Because if they're successful, if they're secure on the inside, then the outside success doesn't hurt them. They can be successful on the outside, but it doesn't destroy their life. Achievements aren't something they need. They're something they can have. But when a child is secure, they've got that inward foundation of who they are, what they're about. That's really what a truly successful child is. So what we want to do is kind of get our focus off that outward security or that outward success, and then build that inward security in our children. As you do that as a dad, you'll be amazed at how truly successful they can be in life.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we go back to this quote every couple months, but somebody once said, nothing you accumulate around you can fill a void within you.
It's true.
And that's how we need to parent. That's how we need to look at our kids. It's like we're developing that inner world. As we often say, success is inside out.
It is.
And that's how you got to parent as well. It's not about the achievements in and of themselves.
Yeah.
If you look to the achievements in and of themselves, you're going to raise someone who's very perfectionist, someone who's very, they base their value on what they can do.
Yeah.
They base their value on what they offer or on what they have even. That's materialistic. And all of those are dangerous places to be. So you work on yourself, you work on your marriage, but then you need to raise your kids to have that mentality as well. If you need a good category, think of the 4D, 4 dimensions of success.
Yeah.
There's the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and then the physical. You can even help your kid develop that in their own life.
Yeah, and what you want to do is help them to develop that inward security to where the outside things they can walk in, they can do. It also builds resiliency. You know, if they go through tough times, which everybody goes through tough times, sometimes they're of our own making, but sometimes they're just circumstances we can't control. But if to a child as they grow up, if everything they judge themselves by or they think the purpose of life is based on that outward, and then the hard times hit, maybe there's a recession, maybe they lose their job, that can really hit them hard to where they eventually stop trying. They give up. They think, well, I can't. And so what they do is they see themselves as a failure, but it's strictly based on outside things and not what's going on inside them.
Yeah. I think of, I played tennis with a few different people over my high school years. And I had this one friend who, whenever the tennis game wasn't going well, would go into rage mode. He would be the angriest. And like, I even knew people on my team who would like cry, you know, if they started losing. And that happens on the professional level as well. Because what happens is those kids have put their sense of inner value and worth in something that they do.
Yeah.
Not in who they actually are.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous place to be because all it takes is one bad game. One bad point can throw them off. The athletes have this problem oftentimes. And that's where you can see the difference between an amateur and a pro is the pro has what you've called resiliency. And that happens not just in games, but in life. When people face hard times, are they going to crumple inwards or is there something inwards that's going to bolster them even in the midst of those tough times? That's what our goal is to develop as parents.
Well, and the good thing about it is if you have a child who you develop security in them, what that does is that helps them focus their success. What they're able to do is to take that security and then move into successful things and be okay with it. They don't need to be successful. Have you ever been around someone who has to win? They have to be number one. A lot of times they're the ones who are willing to cut corners. They're willing to do whatever it takes. They'll cheat, they'll lie, they'll steal to be number one. Why? Because that success is their purpose. It's driving them. It's what they need. Well, when you're secure, you can enjoy success, but the success doesn't control you. You can control that. And those are the people who you find that whether they're up or down, they're still the same person. You know, it's like we've talked about it before. People who are millionaires and billionaires a lot of times will tell you their failures. And they'll talk about the lessons they learned and how they applied them to regain their wealth. They go from bankrupt to millions to bankrupt to millions. How can they do that? Because they've got an inner security. The money success doesn't control them. So therefore, their attitude and their work ethic stays the same through it all. And that's what we want to put into our kids, to where they're secure and they don't need that success because that success will drive them if they do that.
Exactly. You're right. And this not only applies to financial things and career things, this applies to relationships. Everyone knows that one person, or everyone knew that one person in high school that could never be without a boyfriend or could never be without a girlfriend. What they were doing is they were trying to get something outward
Yeah.
to get that inward validation. And so they were dependent on relationships. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of unhealthy relationships develop with that dynamic.
Yeah.
I need this person. I can't live without this person. That's not good. And
Yeah.
that's not what you want your kid to have. Whereas on the opposite end, I think healthy relationships can develop when you're okay with just being you. If you're okay with you, well, then you can enter into a dating and then eventually marriage relationship well. To where if you're not, then you're going to try and put that person on a pedestal. They're trying to take the role of God in your life.
Yeah.
And that never works out well. So it's not just the career that's going to really benefit them if they're secure. It's also just their personal life. The way
Yeah.
that they relate to people is going to be much healthier when they have inward security. In fact, success without being inwardly secure can destroy you.
It can. Yeah.
We talked about the child stars, but you can also talk about a guy who, let's say, has billions of dollars and then has an awful relationship with his family and has no friends.
Yeah.
Are you really successful?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, part of success is how do the people who are closest to you feel about you?
Yeah. And if you get your success at the price of your
Precisely.
family, your friends, your relationships, is it really success? Or is it some finish line you've set up for yourself and you don't care who you have to run over to get there? And we see that also in just everyday life, but also in the sports world, like people who been playing football ever since they were children. Well, they get to the age where they can't play as good anymore. They may be
Yeah.
pros, but they're just not as good as they were.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for them to retire.
They
Because-
always keep coming back to the
Yeah,
game.
because so much of who they are is in the game, and it's hard for them to think, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is help people understand that and help people kind of move past that to where I can let things go because they don't define who I am. We don't want that success to destroy us or even that drive for success. We all know the guy who's driven, but like you said, the family hates him. Everybody hates him because all they want to do is win.
Yeah. No, it's true. You don't want that guy at the family gathering.
Yeah.
He's going to want to play a sport that he's good at just so he can destroy you and laugh.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
nobody likes that guy.
Yeah.
And so we don't want that to turn into your kids. We don't want your kids to become that.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we build that sense of inward security in our children? Because ultimately, you cannot create that for your kids. You
Yeah.
have to almost set an environment where it will naturally grow.
Yeah.
So what does that environment look like as far as we can contribute?
Well, there's two things that we talked about that what we can do to help our kids be more secure. And the first one is let them be secure in our love. And what that means is our love for our children should never be conditional or based upon their behavior. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean we can't discipline them. We can, because discipline is a part of love.
Yep.
If you love someone, you discipline them because you want the best for them. But what we mean is your love is not based upon how they act. You know, I love my kid when they obey me. Well, you still love them even if they don't obey. You discipline them because you love them. And that's what we have to understand. Love is how we act all the time to our kids. And that doesn't just mean, we think of love being that you're always ooey and gooshy and, oh, it's okay, baby, you can do whatever you want. That's not love. That's actually spoiling them. And that means you don't love them as much, honestly. Because if you love your kid, you're going to try to put in them things that help them become better adults. So you're going to want to help them learn self-discipline, self-control. You're not going to give them everything because you know it's not good for them. That's love. But what you want to do is make sure your kids don't think, well, if you don't win, then I'm going to give you the silent treatment.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't make an A? I'm not talking to you for 2 days. See, that sets it up as conditional. I love you only if you perform. And I think a lot of kids grew up in that lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Discipline is all about love because it's developing them.
Yep.
You're only disciplining when it develops them to grow versus punishment, like the silent treatment. I mean, that's all about getting back at them.
It is.
Yeah. A great example of that is how you used to discipline us. You would always sit us down. Like, you wouldn't discipline when you were angry.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this as a kid, but there'd always be a delay time
Yeah.
between when the discipline was decided and when it was enacted. And now I realize it's because you didn't want to discipline in anger
Yeah.
and then go too far. But the discipline did happen. You would come back, you'd explain to us why we were getting disciplined, and we didn't care at that point, but you were just saying, hey, I'm doing it because X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. You gave that speech. Then you would spank us or whatever it was. And at the end, you would hug us afterwards and just say, hey, I love you. And as a kid, that's annoying because it's like, you don't love me. You just
Yeah.
hurt me, you know? But as an adult, now I can see that you are almost making a sandwich to
Yeah.
where it's like corrective moment, actual discipline, love. And I think that's a good way of showing like that is love.
Yeah.
Like it says in the book of Proverbs, if you spare the rod, that's going to hurt your kid in the long run.
Yeah.
But you surrounded it with elements that reminded you like, hey, I'm not doing this to get revenge on you. I really don't feel like doing this, you know?
Yeah.
But you did X, Y, Z, the discipline happens, and then, hey, I just want you to know I love you, even though you may not like me right now because
Yeah.
I just spanked you.
And I think that's something we get even outside the family. I was at a graduation this year. Our youngest cousin graduated high school. And it was interesting. There's this one teacher that everybody either mentioned or would go hug. And I was like, I asked the student, I said, what's up with that teacher? And they said that she's an extremely hard teacher, extremely hard, pushes everybody. But she goes early and does tutoring for people free. She'll do all this stuff. But in her class, you got to give your best. And she pushes, but everybody loves her.
Yeah.
Why? Because she believes in them. She says, you can do this. And she pushes them. She gets on to them when she needs to. But we get that. And so the students all respond to her, just like as a parent, being your child's best friend is not the goal.
No.
Raising your child to be a secure adult is the goal.
Yeah.
When they become an adult, they'll be your friend. But when they're young, they don't understand life. You have to help teach them. And when you do that, you're making them more secure. And that's the thing you want to understand. Discipline is a part of love. And you want to love them and let them know that their actions don't stop your love.
Yeah.
But because you love them, you may discipline, you may do these things, but it's out of love that you do it.
Yeah. You're not manipulating.
Yeah,
And you're not dependent on their approval of you.
exactly.
And that's why the whole first session of this
Yeah.
was developing your own security, working on your own growth. Because I feel like moms do this more often, but I'm sure dads do it as well. That sense of like, oh, if my kid's not happy or if my kid's not happy with me, you know, I'm failing somehow.
Yeah,
And the truth is, no matter how good of a parent you are, I actually, if you're a good parent,
yeah,
there will be times where the kids are mad at you because you're not doing what they think you should do.
Yeah.
But they're 8
Yeah,
or they're
yeah.
12. You know, they don't know. And so you have to bring that correction. And you've got to be secure in that moment or else you're going to start questioning everything or bend when you shouldn't
yeah.
because you have to have them be happy with you.
Well, and that's what kids need the adults to believe something, to live something. And that's where when you don't have a foundation in your life, you know, if you're trying to be dad, but you don't really believe anything, you don't have any foundation in your life, it's going to be hard to put that into your children. And a lot of times what we do as adults is we think, well, kids should just know. Well, no, they can't know because you haven't taught them. It's our job to teach them. We teach them how to do these things. We show them how to do these things. But sometimes we're missing it, so we can't show it to them. So we get into this game where we're manipulating, where we're controlling. We're using emotions to get them to do what we want. And a lot of times it's because we want them to act a certain way out in public so they don't embarrass us.
Wow.
So in the end, it really becomes about us more than our children. And that's a bad way to parent because it teaches them that what others think of you is the most important thing. And that's not where we want our kids to live.
No, absolutely not. Now, the second point, and this is also from your dad's course, so I'd like you to explain it in a second, is you want them to be secure in your support. And I remember you made a very big differentiation. You're not just supporting what they do. You're trying to show them that you support who they are.
Yeah.
Now, what does that look like practically?
Yeah, what that means is your love, your communication, your actions toward them are consistent. And what that means is you love them whether their team wins or whether their team loses.
Yeah.
Whether they score the winning goal or whether they miss the winning goal. You know, I heard a stat recently about Michael Jordan, and it was how many shots, like he had taken the last shot in a bunch of games throughout his career, you know, high school, college, pro, and he'd missed a bunch. Like he'd lost games. But people don't remember that.
Yeah.
And they remember the ones he made.
Yeah.
Well, his dad was probably an integral part of, hey, you'll make the next one, you know? And that's what you want to do with your child is whether they blow it or whether they do well, you want to act the same. You want to rejoice with them. You want to cry with them, but you want to let them know that you love them. Now, you do push them, you know, like we had a thing and a friend of mine was the one who said, this is what they did. I thought it was good. If you choose to do a sport, you've committed. So as a parent, my child is committed to the sport for that year. So they can't quit during the year. They got to stick with it. At the end of the year, if they realize it's not my thing, you can quit. You can try something else, and that's okay. But what you want to do is push them at the right time, but also let them know that your love, your acceptance of them is not based upon their performance. Because then it teaches them that the only way they get love is to perform. That's a bad thing for our kids to learn. You know, whether guys or girls, if they think their love is based on performance, that's how they live their life. And so what you want to do is support them in who they are and what they do.
Yeah. And sometimes that means that you're going to support them in an area of interest that they love that you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Like this might happen in my life. It probably will at some point. I have very little interest in the vast majority of sports. Very little. Like so little interest. But if my kid gets interested in a sport, I'm going to support them in that.
Yeah.
And the same is true for you, even if you're the opposite. Maybe you're into sports, but your daughter wants to do dance. Well, support her in dance.
Yeah.
It's not about you. If you parent and you make your parenting about you, you are missing the point. Because, as it says in Scripture, love one another as you love yourself. You're supposed to love them the exact way you want to be loved.
Yeah, and when you do that, you're helping your child develop who they are. You're helping them discover, what do I like? What do I not like? You know, they may do dance, but they may never become a professional dancer.
And that's okay.
But through dance, they learn discipline. They learn hard work. They learn what it takes to reach a goal. Well, those are good life skills to have. And so you want to encourage them in that, but also your support, your love, your care. Hey, my dad hated dance, but he came to every one of my recitals. That means something to them. And what you're doing is you're letting them know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here for you because you mean so much to me. That builds security in them. That helps them to feel like, okay, my worth is not based on my performance. My worth is based on just who I am. And that's what you want them to learn.
Yeah, you have a quote here that I want to just literally read because you said it very well. Your goal is for them to be the best version of themselves. So you challenge them in the context of love and not in the context of acceptance. It's not, I push myself to get my dad's acceptance. It's my dad loves me and he pushes me because he believes in me. And it's okay to push your kids.
It is.
Like, for example, let's say dance is their thing. No, you can't skip practice. Yes, you have to stick with it. Until the end of the year or whatever. But that has nothing to do with how I feel about you. It's simply, that's what we do. And you have to be the kind of man that goes to his stuff and follows through on his stuff. You know, because you can't be hypocritical here. So if you do that, you will nurture the part of them that learns how to do that for themselves. What you don't want them to become is the kind of person that's like, I'm worthless unless I can get to X, Y, Z. You want them to be able to lovingly push themselves to get better. Growth is not about earning acceptance. Growth it's a joy. It's
Yeah.
a part of a healthy person's life.
It is. And when you teach your kids to be the best version of themselves, you're teaching them a life skill of, hey, you can grow, you can get better. Even if you're not the best in the world, you can be the best version of you.
Exactly.
And that's going to apply to whatever they do, whatever job they're in, their family, everything. And the thing you want to do in that is make sure that you and your wife have a united front in that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you guys are loving in that united way so the child doesn't run to one parent over the other.
That's a good point.
If your children are doing that, then you and your wife need to work through some things. And you say, well, what if I'm in a divorce situation? Well, then you probably have to work even harder in that. But you can do it because you don't want them brought in onto that. What you want to do is make sure that, hey, we still support you. And don't let, guilt tripping and all these other things come into it. We're here for you. You're the child. We're here to support you. And you want to take the lead as a dad to do that. That may be hard. It may be you having to do some things you don't want to do or having some communication issues with your wife that you got to work through, but it's worth it.
It is.
Because you're building the security of your child, and that's what you want to do.
No, you're exactly right. And I think that's a healthy environment to have your kid in.
It is.
Because it's a both and. They should learn to love themselves, but also grow themselves.
Yeah.
And to enjoy that journey. Because the truth is, being the best version of yourself is not a destination. It's a process. It's going to happen until your last breath.
Yeah, and you're teaching them what is real success. And that inner security is really what success is. So no matter what happens in life, whether they make $1 million, whether they just make it every week, they are able to build a great life. And then you as a parent, when you see that, they begin to build that in their kids, and the generations see the positive effect of it because of the work you did.
Exactly. So we have 2 reflection questions for you guys to walk away with and think about if you've got kids. Question number 1, how are you building the security of your children? How are you feeding their soul? As we've talked about in this episode, are you letting them be secure in your love and your acceptance? Are you challenging them to be better, but in the context of love? And the second question is, are you success-based in teaching them that accomplishments are the purpose of life? Or are you developing that inner security that they need to have to really be successful at life? And if you have been more accomplishment-driven, that is how our culture is. But that's not how the culture of your home's meant to be. So you can be different, and you and your wife can change that. It's possible. So pick one area that you can work on that in and focus on that going into the next few weeks. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.